Okay, good morning. We are having our second webinar on the soil. The first one was day before yesterday, and today is our second second webinar which we are having. And Dr. Garg is going to continue the presentation, and participants, please put up the name of your country into this in your list so that when we prepare the list, the progress report, we can put the name of your country into this list. And we have been today so far 13 participants, and the countries which we have, there is Bhutan, Philippines, and then India, and what else? Other countries are there. Okay, many more countries will join, I think. And Dr. Garg, can we start so that we finish up well in time, like yesterday? Dr. R.K. Garg.
Thank you, Dr. Deshbandhu, and good morning to all. We had a talk yesterday, day before yesterday, and in continuous series, we will start now. As we know, we have been talking about the soil, how the soil is formed and what is its role in a ecosystem. And we know that the soil system is called pedosphere, and it has all the spheres of the ecosystem. That means the biosphere, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, as well as the pedosphere. They all are interrelated and they have exchange in each other. Next, please. Next slide. So, what is the main role of the soil in the ecosystem? This we have discussed earlier also, that soil is very important for plants as it provides all the nutrients, it provides water, it provides the support to the root system, etc., to the plants. At the same time, the water is filtered, the soil stores carbon in it, and it also supports as well as provides habitat for different kind of the organisms, including the microorganisms as well as the macroorganisms like earthworms, etc. Thus, soil is not just a dirt beneath your feet. It is a very, very, very important resource beneath your feet, and I can call it as a precious resource, of course, in the environment. So a healthy ecosystem must have a healthy soil, and this will provide the sustainability of our planet. Now, today's this presentation, we will be talking about the plant growth supporting system, that is, of course, the soil, how they regulate water and they sustain biodiversity. And we will try to understand a few protocols which we do in GLOBE program. And it is a hands-on activity in which the students and the teachers, they contribute a lot and help the research scientist and the community scientist to understand the different kind of the environment. So, in order to have a meaningful environmental stewardship, we must know different aspects of the soil and its environment. Next, please. Now, soil is a bedrock of life because the soil provides a stable structure for the roots to grow. It provides essential all the nutrients and water to the plants. And without any healthy soil, the plants will not survive, they will not thrive. And the plants, being the primary producers, they are the sources of food web and food chain to all kind of the organisms, including primary consumers, the secondary consumers, the top consumers, as well as to the detritus. That means the plants remains which remain on the ground. They actually again provide the nutrient cycling. So earthworms, insects, microorganisms, algal flora, algal fauna, they all maintain the healthy health of the soil. So, in other words, when there is a nutrient cycling, it actually provides the ecological balance between the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the lithosphere, and of course the biosphere. So in order to sustain plant life and in order to provide a good habitat, the soil is very important, as a very good quantity of biodiversity remains within the soil, and this is very important as for the resilient of the ecosystem. Next, please. And now we have talked about the nutrient provider, water retention and supply, physical support as a medium of growth. We all know that nutrients are needed by the plants, which are absorbed through roots, and they reach on up to the top level of the plant. That means maybe up to the leaves, the fruits, the seeds. Thus, the main nutrients, including nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and of course the micronutrients also are needed for the plants to grow and to survive. These nutrients, of course, are absorbed by the plant roots through soil, and they provide a very important raw material for the photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, of course, you need the light, the water, and the different kind of the nutrients. This will make the plants to produce food. So if there is no fertile soil beneath the plant growth, beneath the soil, so the whole food production and the growth will be affected. Similarly, the soil does not only percolate the water, but it retains water. It has a water retention capacity, so that in the lean season also, they continue to provide water to the plants. So the water availability, water retention is very important for the plants to grow. The structure and texture of the soil actually determines that how the plants can be stored in the soil particles. So this is also very important, and we have to understand the structure and the texture of the soil. Similarly, plants support the roots, the anchoring of the plant within the roots. They have main root, and then they have secondary, tertiary, and many root system. The whole root system keep the trees and the herbs and the shrubs to remain straight, upright in the soil. So the stability of the plant is actually provided by the physical support given to the plants by the soil. The structure of the structure and composition of the soil provides the physical support, that how much sand, how much silt, and how much clay can hold the root properly and can provide the water continuously. Soil, of course, is a medium of growth. In this, many kind of the plant grows. At the same time, within the soil, there are organisms and there is a root system. All the root and the plants and the animals and the flora and the fauna which are within the soil, they continue to respire. And there is a gaseous exchange. So a healthy soil can create a optimal environment for root expansion so that they can provide the correct productivity for the humankind. Next, please. Now, as we told that it is a natural filter. It will actually separate the pollutants and the impurities, and the pure water will percolate in the different layers of the soil. So removing contaminants, removing the other kind of the pollutants is a very important aspect due to the sedimentation of the water. And here, the harmful bacteria, the harmful chemicals, the harmful sediments, they are actually filtered through the different layers of the soil. So the soil structure and its composition regulates in preventing of the erosion as well as charges the groundwater so that you can continuously get the water from the ground. The ability of the soil to filter is actually by the soil texture as well as the structure of the soil. There are many organic content, organic matter present in the soil, and there is of course the root and the microorganisms which also help the soil to filter the different contaminants. Next, please. Soil, as I told, that the soil has within it the root system, as one can see here. There are roots, and then there is a humus, and there is a organic matter, and then there are soil flora and fauna and microorganisms. All of them need oxygen for their growth. At the same time, the photosynthesis need carbon dioxide. Thus, there is a gaseous exchange and there is a continuous cycle between the soil and the atmosphere, and of course the hydrosphere. Thus, there is a process called carbon sequestration. That means it will help mitigate the climate change because the carbon dioxide percentage get reduced due to photosynthesis. And that's why the soil structure and texture, they monitor the moisture level, the organic content in the soil, and its capacity to store the carbon within the soil particles. So understanding the soil structure and soil texture is a very important so that we can understand that how healthy the ecosystem is. Next, please. There is a lot of biodiversity inside the soil. Of course, on the atmosphere, face of the soil also, there are many kinds of the bacteria, fungi, insects, earthworms, annelids, and many kind of microorganisms. They include many kind of bacteria. They include the nitrogen fixing bacteria. They include the decaying bacteria, which will actually convert the humus into the organic matter. And there is a healthy balance to maintain the ecosystem and the soil health. The microorganisms break down organic matter, they recycle nutrients, They also provide essential nutrients for the plant growth. They have, some of them have some symbiotic relationship, like the azotobacter and other kind of the bacteria. They remain inside the root, and thus they provide a more ground for the water absorption. Soil biodiversity at the same time depresses and suppresses the disease causing bacteria, and thus the disease which are spreaded for the human beings, diseases which is spread in the plants, diseases which is spread in the environment, diseases which is spread due to the bacterial growth, they are also checked when there is a healthy biodiversity within the soil. So it also at the same time help us in mitigation of the climate change. Next, please. So soil, as we told, is very important for agriculture, for productivity, nutrients, water retention, and the crop production, and the production of the fruits and the vegetables. They also are dependent on the healthy soil. So understanding the structure and texture of the soil forms a sound foundation for successful farming. Crop rotation is also there. One can grow the legumes and the other plants so that the legumes can fix the atmospheric nitrogen, provide more nitrogen to the soil. Next year or next season, you can have another kind of the crops. So the crop rotation is very important. Organic farming, when you don't use any kind of the chemicals, include the chemical fertilizer in the soil like nitrates and phosphates, and minimum tillage. That means we can till the soil, but we have to make it minimize so that the soil degradation is minimized. And if we prevent degradation, the soil fertility and sustainable food production is ensured. So the soil quality will affect the quantity of the food which is produced and its nutritional value. If the food produced is in bulk, but it has less nutritional value, then it has less market value and healthy value. So the food security and availability of the food to all the growing population of the world is ensured if there is a very, very healthy soil. Next, please. Now, what is a soil degradation? If there is any kind of change in the soil quality, that means the nutrients are not there. Maybe that the water retention capacity is affected. Maybe that the water availability is affected. Maybe that due to compaction of the soil, the roots which penetrate in the soil, it is affected. If there is less organic matter, if there are pollutants and plastics present inside the soil, all these perform a critical ecosystem, and thus the soil's ability to support the plant life and a healthy plant life is actually affected. We can call it as a soil degradation. Due to degradation, there is a soil erosion, there is a desertification, there is loss of fertility, there is a loss of the biological this wealth or biodiversity. So all these things are there. If the top layer of the soil is affected, it is taken out, it is removed, then the highest concentration of the organic matter and nutrients are not available. We know that to form 1 inch of the top layer of the soil, the nature takes approximately 500 to 1000 years to make the top layer. And if the top layer is actually removed, then it may lead to desertification where the fertile soil becomes the barren soil. The fertile soil becomes unproductive soil. The fertile soil becomes a soil which is of no use. So this will actually threaten the food security in the whole world and the livelihood of the many people all over the world will be affected. There is loss of fertility, that means loss of the nutrients, loss of the water retention capacity of the soil, and it will also affect the uh, fertility. And then our farmers again and again use the chemical fertilizers. Now, the yield due to chemical fertilizer is increased in an initial phase. Slowly and slowly, our land becomes unfertile and our soil becomes not good for the plant health. The organisms which are present in the soil, if we use chemical fertilizers and if there is no any topsoil, that also is actually affected. The biodiversity is affected, which deteriorates the whole system and the soil health is actually affected. So a local impact also affects the global impact. It affects the water quality, it affects the climate pollution, it affects the sustainable development, and all the critical factors which are essential for the conservation of the soil, we have to take into consideration so that our soil remain a healthy soil, non-degraded soil, non-desertified soil, and the soil health or the land health is actually maintained. Next, please. Next. So we will talk about the soil color and soil consistence. What is a soil color? Soil color is a color which is due to the soil composition and due to the soil health. If there is a dark soil, then definitely more organic matter in this soil. If there is a red soil, it will show us that the iron element is present in the soil or the iron oxides, etc. are present in the soil. Same is with the yellow colored soil. The soil color also tells us about the drainage system within the soil. If there is more moisture level in the soil will be a bright colored. And if it is a well-drained soil, then if it is a very poor soil with having very poor drainage, then the soil color will be gray or blue. Similarly, soil consistence, that means how the soil particles, they feel and they behave. So it is also can be manipulated. So there can be a loose soil, there can be a friable soil, there can be a firm soil, there can be a very hard soil. It will all affect the growth of the root system in the plants and in the ecosystem. Next, please. So that is what we were talking about. If there is a high organic matter in the soil, it will tell us that the upper top layer, just see this one, upper top layer of this soil is very dark in color. If it contains the iron or the oxides of the iron, the color of the soil will be red in color. Next, please. So when should we try to understand the soil color? So we have a soil color protocol in globe. It should be always done on a sunny day. That means we should avoid rainy days as well as the days when there are clouds. So what we do is, we need a pad of the soil. Just see, this is a pad of the soil. Can you see this one? Pad of the soil pad. I have this in my hand. So pad of the soil is taken. Then we need a spray or a mist bottle. And of course, a very well standardized soil color chart or a soil color book is needed, which is approved by the International Soil Science. Next, please. Now, this color chart, which is approved by the International Soil Science Society, is called Munsell Soil Color Chart. Now, in this Munsell soil color system, colors are actually identified by its three properties. There is one thing we call hue, another is its value, and third is its chroma. Next, please. What is a hue? Hue is the color's position in the color wheel. Just see here, there is a color wheel. See here. So this color wheel has different kind of the colors. You can have light green, very dark green, red, then blue, then yellow, then all the other kind of the colors are present. And this is the hue. The value will tell us the amount of black and white which is added to the basic colors, which will actually lower or actually increase the color's lightness or darkness. And then there is a chroma. Chroma is a kind of thing where we talk about the saturation of the color. The higher the chroma, more saturated the color is there. So the three things are there in the International Soil Color Chart, and we call it as a Munson color chart. Next, please. So how to observe the soil color? We take a pad here. I have taken a pad in my hand, and where I will be putting it, we have to put it on in between our thumb and of course the two fingers. And then we can take these pads from different horizons, horizon A, horizon B, horizon C. If this pad is dry, you have to moisten it slightly, very slightly, not too much, and with the help of a water bottle, and soak the water inside this pad. Stand with the sun over your shoulder. This is very important. You have to stand in such a way that the sun is towards your back and not towards your front. As well as two things, the soil pad as well as the color book. Both should be within the what you call sunshine. They should not be in the dark, or they should not be in the shade of your own body. Next, please. Next. So what we do is, once we have moistened the this pad, we actually break it into two pieces so that the inner level of the soil can be visible. Then we look into the color chart book and try to match the color of the soil with that of the color chart. And we have to, then there are codes which are given, then we have to match it with the code. Sometimes there is a possibility that in one school or at one site, there can be two kind of the soils or two kind of the soil colors one can see. In that case, there can be one dominant or main color, and there can be a secondary color which we have to record. Next, please. Now, another is soil consistence. How to find the soil consistence? Consistence is actually determined by the aggregates which are present in the soil and how they break apart. One can see here The soil can be loose, where the particles are actually loose. It can be a friable soil. It can be a firm, or it can be extremely firm. So one can indicate it with the help of the taking the soil pad in hand, and you have to take it in your palm so that you can actually find out. Next, please. So in consistency, we actually find the firmness of the individual and how they break apart. So for example, a soil is friable for consistency if there is a loose soil. If there is a loose soil, what will happen? It will be easier for the roots to go inside, and the shovel and prongs can very easily move inside. So on the other hand, a soil with the extremely firm consistency will not allow the roots to grow very easily, as well as it will not allow the plow to go inside. So here, just see my hand. I have taken a pad in my hand, and I'm trying to just I'm trying to put it a pressure on this my hand. What you will find? Just it is a what kind of soil it is? It is a soil which is, of course, a friable and not very much hard. So such kind of soil is treated as best soil and best quality for the plant growth. Next, please. So loose soil, as we told you just it is you have problem in picking up a single pad, then it is a loose one. It is a friable when the break it very easily. So I have put the pressure with my hand, and it is a friable soil. There is a firm soil where you have to dent your and put more pressure on this one. And if it is not broken even with the help of the thumb and fingers, then you have to use a hammer. Then such soil we will call it the extremely firm soil. Next, please. Next. Now, another is soil texture. Now, one must first understand what is a texture. Here it is written that texture means feel. How do you feel it? How you will feel? If if you go for purchasing a cloth in the market and you want to know that the cloth is coarse or fine, how do you do it? You take the cloth in your hand, and with the help of your fingertips as well as the tip of your thumb, you try to feel it. And if the texture, that means the feel, is good, you will call it as a good cloth. So similarly, the presence of sand, silt, and clay, these are the three kind of the particles which actually determines the soil texture. Sand are the particles which are roughly of the 2 millimeter to 0.5 millimeter size. Then from 0.05 to 0.02 is called silt. And of course, less than 0.002 millimeter is a clay. Now, if we see only the sand or more quantity of sand, it will feel gritty in our hand. If there is more silt present, then it will feel flowery. And if the particles are very small in size, that is less than 0.002 millimeter, they will be sticky to our body, to our hands. So one can very easily determine the soil texture. Next, please. Next. Yes. So it is on the percentage of the silt, percentage of clay, percentage of the sand, which will tell us that what kind of soil it is. If it is a sandy clay soil, it will have more sand as compared to the clay. If it is a silty clay soil, it will have more percentage of silt and less clay. And then there is a clay loam soil where the silt, the sand, as well as the clay will be of the roughly same size. There can be a loamy soil, there can be a sandy loam, depending upon the percentage of the soil having sand, silt, and be known by the what you call clay. This is the percentage of silt, and this is the percentage of the sand. So sand from here 0 to 100, the silt here 0 to 100, and the clay from here 0 to 100. And this forms a triangle, and one can measure the different kind of the soil. Next, please. Next. So what we do, how we do it, soil texture in the field, we take a handful of soil. We have to take a full handful of the soil. Then you have to spray the mist with the help of mist bottle, or you have to make it wet. Next, please. Next. Next. Yes. Then if it is soil, if it is actually a what you call sand, then just see here it can be determined by feeling it. So it is very, very gritty. So what we do with the help of the mist, we have done a wet the soil and make a ball out of it. If that ball is not formed, of course it is a sand. If the ball makes, then we go to the next step. Next, please. Next. So if the ball has been formed, what we do? We squeeze the ball. We will squeeze the ball, and we will try to make a ribbon between the two fingers. That means the indicator finger and our thumb, we try to form a small ribbon. If the soil does not make a ribbon, we call it as a loamy sand. Very simple. If the ribbon is made, then we go to the next step. That means where it may be a clay or a loamy soil. Next, please. Next. We feel for the clay, and if the soil stains your hands and it keeps its shape, then it is very hard to squeeze. Then we will call it as a clay soil. If the ribbon goes on making and it is more than 5 centimeter, there is a lot of clay in it, and so we can call it as a clay soil. Next, please. Now, and is not broken at 2 centimeter, but it becomes more than 2 centimeter, then it is a clay loam soil. Next. If ribbon is less than 2 centimeter, then it is a loamy soil. In other words, what texture we do, first thing is that you need to use your hands. Second thing is that you should be ready to soil your hands or dirty your hands. And you have to take a small amount of the soil in your hand to make a ball, try to squeeze it, and try to measure roughly the ribbon is of 2 centimeter or more than 2 centimeter size. So a very, very simple kind of uh, hands-on exercise which can be done in 5 to 10 minutes period, and we can know the exact texture of the soil. Next, please. So if we take the pinch of the soil in our palm and rub it with the help of our four fingers, if it feels gritty, as I told you earlier, it is definitely a sandy soil. So if we have already earlier classified it as a clay or clay loam or a sandy loam, we will sandy with the clay. So sandy clay loam, sandy loam will be our the final classification. Just see, this is a clay soil. This is a sandy clay. This is a silty clay. So clay loam soil, sandy loam soil. So all these classifications are classification based on the soil texture and are internationally recognized classifications. Next, please. So we have done the soil classification. So soil can be a silty or a silty clay loam or silty loam. Just see here, silty clay, sandy clay, clay loam, or a loamy soil. We go to the next step. Next, please. If the soil feels neither gritty nor soft, that is not flowy, then it is definitely a clay kind of soil. That means it contains more clay. We call it as a clay loam or a loamy soil. And thus, we have determined the soil texture easily. Next, please. Now, we have to find out the presence of roots, rocks, and carbonates within the soil. Just see, knowing the amount of roots in each horizon, upper horizon, lower horizon also is very important. That will tell us about the soil fertility, its bulk density, its water holding capacity, as well as the depth of the soil. And that is why we have to understand the movement of the water, whether the soil heat is there, the air is present in the soil, or the soil root growth is proper or not. So all these can be determined, and we can know that whether the climate where the plant is growing is a dry climate or a particular kind of parental material is rich in calcium or limestone, etc. Next. Next, please. Yes. So we have to find out the roots and whether the roots are present at to what depth. So what we do is, if there is a more roots are found, just see here, the roots are present, roots, then we can know that they are continuously getting water as well as nutrients from the soil. Matter soil because organic matter. So we have to record and observe whether the root fragments, dead root fragments, or other things are present, live as well as dead, are present in each zone or not. Next, please. So we have to estimate at the same time the number of small pebbles or small rocks which are present, so that the movement of the water, heat, air through the soil, its root growth, and the amount of the soil material involved in chemical and physical interaction can be known. The soil particles, which are more than 2 millimeter in size, are called rocks or the pebbles. So from each horizon, one can bring out the rocks and the pebbles separately. We have to separate them. Next. Now, another thing is that we want to know the presence of carbonates. Carbonates will tell us the climate is dry or the parent material had rich in calcium and limestone or not. Soil coat and the soil particles are generally more than 7 pH and they are alkaline or there are free carbonates present or not. So if the carbonates are present, it will show us the chemical reaction. So for this, we use a very acid, that means vinegar. And the vinegar is actually sprayed on the soil in different horizons. And if there are bubbles coming out of it, we call it a effervescence. So if the effervescence or the bubbles are formed, that means we know that there are carbonates present and how much they are present. More carbonate oil. Next, please. So here one can see, just see, here if we look carefully, the presence of effervescence, then one can observe that whether here, just see, here there is a strong bubbles coming out. So carbonates are definitely present and they tell us that more carbonates are present. If there is a bubble coming out, but they are less in number, that means the carbonates are definitely present, but there is a little carbonate present. But if there is a straight line and there is no any carbonate, that means non-carbonate is present. Next, please. No carbonates present. Now, whatever we do, we have to then, whatever observations you have done, they are to be entered in the data entry site of globe. So there is a site where you have, if you have not defined earlier for your school, you have to define the soil data entry site. The site needs to be defined, its coordinates needs to be made. Then after defining the different horizon, we have to take and you have to define the site of your school. Next, please. Yes, here the horizon, first horizon, second horizon, third horizon, all the horizons needs to be defined and their depth needs to be entered. So you have to enter the different entries of your globe data entry. Next, please. Here also, you have to start defining your different horizons as well as its depth, starting point, ending points, and all the other things need to be defined. And depth and properties of each horizon. Properties of each horizon. Properties means here the color, the consistency, the texture, the roots, the presence of rocks and the pebbles, the carbonates, their presence and their quantity. All these are to be entered in the data entry site. Next, please. Next, yes. So what can you learn from soil characterization? And where should you take the sample? As I told earlier also, the day before yesterday, that preferably your site should be near the soil, land cover site. And what kind of surface sampling method you are using, whether you are using a auger method or you are using a shovel method, or whether you are studying the soil layers where there has been a construction of the road, etc., you need to define. And how do you use the compass? You have to need a compass so that the north and south and whether the site is a natural site or a disturbed vegetation site or an undisturbed vegetation site, and you have to define and identify the soil sampling site of your area, and of course, a kind of vegetation which is present on this soil need to be defined in your sampling site. So next, please. What creates the different horizons in a soil profile? You have to answer these questions, all the students. And what natural changes could alter the soil horizon? Whether it is color, whether it is presence of the root zones, presence of some pebbles and others, or whether something else. How long might it take to alter the depth of the different horizons? It may take years together. How do soil profile change from one location to the another location? There can be a change in one location to the another location, provided that there is a change in the human habitation, human disturbances, some anthropogenic disturbances, some other kind of the activities going on very easily. So all these you have to record. How do we from one location to location? There is a possibility that in a natural place, the depth of the upper horizon is higher as compared to the upper horizon in a grassland. So that is also very important. Next, please. Thank you so much. And I think our next webinar is on 10th. Maybe our office will tell you. Now, if you have any question, you can ask. But the question which I want to ask to one student, in case the soil is very, very dark, what conclusions you will determine, you will tell. Any student, please. If the soil is very, very dark, what does it say? Okay, I'll tell you. It will tell us that there is more organic matter present in the soil. If there is more iron present in the parent rock, what color will be? It will, hello students, it will be red color. So if there is no any pad present, you cannot have a pad, and there is a loose soil. Can we call it as a friable? No, it is of course a loose soil, and possibility is there that there is more what you call sand present in the soil. So all these will come to you once you go in the field. You make your hands dirty, you use the soil, you take the soil in your hand and try to mesh your hands. Okay, with this, today's lecture is complete. And thank you all the students, all the teachers, and of course the Globe Asia Pacific office and Dr. Deshbandhu and everyone for patiently hearing me. And thank you so much.